might be a completely different scene to the dreamer. The burnings were a fine reminder of something Gideon had learned long ago. There is doom to be found everywhere if doom is what you seek. "Well, come on then, Max," Gideon said to the dog, who was coincidentally also his roommate. Max sniffed the air and whined in opposition as they headed west, but they both understood that dreams were Gideon's domain, and therefore their path was ultimately Gideon's decision. Magically speaking, the dream realms were part of a collective subconscious. While every human had access to a corner of the realms, very few were able to traverse the realms of dreams as Gideon was. To see where a person's own consciousness ended and others began required a particular set of skills, and Gideon, who knew the shifting patterns of the realms the same way sailors know the tides, had even keener senses now that he rarely left their midst. To the outside world, Gideon presented as a fairly normal person with narcolepsy. Understanding his magic, though, was not straightforward at all. As far as Gideon could gather, the line between conscious and subconscious was very thin for him. He could identify time and location within the dream realms, but his ability to walk through dreams occasionally prevented him from making it all the way through breakfast upright. Sometimes it seemed he belonged more to the realm of dreams than to the world of the living. Still, Gideon's apparent somnambular flaw meant that he could make use of the limits others faced. A normal person could fly in a dream, for example, but they would know they were dreaming and therefore be aware that they couldn't actually fly in real life. Gideon Drake, on the other hand, could fly. Period. Whether he happened to be awake or dreaming was the part he couldn't always figure out. Gideon wasn't technically any more powerful than anyone else would be inside of a dream. His corporeal limitations were similar to those of telepathy. No magic performed in the dream realms could possibly harm him permanently, unless his physical form suffered something like a stroke or seizure. Gideon felt pain the same way another person might feel it in a dream, imagined and then gone when they woke up. Unless he was under unusual amounts of stress that could then cause one of the above bodily reactions, that is. But that he never worried over. Only Nico worried about that sort of thing. At the thought of Nico, Gideon suffered the usual twinge of something exposed, like having misplaced one shoe and carried on trudging without it. For the last year, he had trained himself, with varying degrees of success depending on the day, to stop cataloging the absence of his and Max's usual companion. It had been difficult at first. The thought of Nico usually came back to him reflexively, like muscle memory, without preemption or forethought, and therefore with the unforeseen consequence of disrupting his intended route. Sometimes, when Gideon's thoughts went to Nico, so did Gideon himself. In the end, the pitfall and the providence of knowing Nico di Verona was that he could not be readily forgotten, nor easily parted from. Missing him was like missing a severed limb. Never quite complete and never whole, though on occasion the vestigial aches proved helpfully informative. Gideon allowed himself to feel the things he tried, under other circumstances, not to. And like a sigh of relief, he felt the realms shift courteously beneath his feet. The nightmare gradually subsided, giving way to the atmosphere of Gideon's own dreams, and so Gideon followed the path that came to him most easily. His own. The smoke from the dream faded as Gideon's mind wandered, and as such he and Max found themselves moving through conscious perception of time and space. In place of scorched earth, there was now the faint suggestion of microwavable popcorn and industrial-strength laundry detergent, unmistakable top notes of the Nyuma dorms. And with it, the familiar face of a teenager Gideon once knew. "I'm Nico," said the wild-eyed, messy-haired boy whose T-shirt was inadvertently folded up on one side from the presence of his duffel bag. "You're Gideon. You look exhausted."